America launched into World War II, not only with soldiers and ships, but with something even more powerful, its factories. When the war began, the United States was still recovering from the Great Depression, but once it entered the conflict in 1941, its industrial might transformed overnight. In a matter of months, America became the world's greatest arsenal, producing weapons, vehicles, and supplies on a scale the world had never seen before. This massive industrial effort didn't just support American troops. It fueled the entire Allied war machine. Before the war, the U.S. military was small and poorly equipped compared to the major powers of Europe. But that changed after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Almost instantly, factories across the nation shifted from making consumer goods to producing tools of war. Automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler stopped building cars and began turning out tanks, jeeps, and aircraft engines. Civilian industries were converted into war production centers. Typewriter factories started making rifles. Refrigerator plants began manufacturing airplane parts, and shipyards operated around the clock. President Franklin D. Roosevelt called it the arsenal of democracy. It wasn't just a slogan. It was a promise that American industry would produce enough to arm not only the United States, but also its allies. The scale was staggering. Between 1941 and 1945, the United States produced over 300,000 aircraft, 86,000 tanks, and 2.5 million military trucks. American factories built more warships, guns, and ammunition than all the Axis powers combined. In total, the U.S. manufactured nearly 40% of all the world's munitions used during the war. The Ford Motor Company became one of the stars of this industrial miracle. Its Willow Run plant in Michigan was designed to build B24 Liberator bombers, huge four-engine aircraft that were crucial for bombing raids over Europe. Ford applied assembly line techniques to aircraft production, something that had never been done before. At its peak, Willow Run produced one bomber every 63 minutes. By the end of the war, the plant had built over 8,600 B-24s, proving that mass production could be applied even to complex machines like airplanes. Shipbuilding was another area where America's industrial strength shined. The Liberty Ship program, designed to create simple, cargo-carrying vessels quickly, became a symbol of wartime efficiency. These ships were essential for transporting troops, tanks, and supplies across the Atlantic and Pacific. Using fabricated sections, shipyards cut construction time from months to mere weeks. At the Kaiser shipyards in California, one Liberty ship was famously built in just over 4 days, a record that still amazes historians today. But it wasn't just machines and weapons that came off assembly lines. The American economy shifted entirely toward total war production. Factories produced everything soldiers needed: uniforms, boots, tents, medical supplies, food, and ammunition. Women joined the workforce in massive numbers, filling the jobs left behind by men who went to fight. Rosie the Riveter became an icon, representing millions of women who worked in shipyards, airplane factories, and munitions plants. Their contribution kept production lines running day and night. The numbers tell the story of industrial power unmatched in history. In 1940, the United States produced fewer than 3,000 aircraft. By 1944, that number had jumped to nearly 100,000 per year. In tank production, the U.S. built more than Germany and Japan combined. American factories churned out over 41 billion rounds of ammunition. The auto industry alone produced more than 500,000 military trucks and over 50,000 tanks. These machines allowed Allied forces to move faster, strike harder, and sustain long campaigns across continents. While the factories were roaring, another key part of this industrial success was logistics, the ability to deliver equipment where it was needed most. The United States built an extraordinary network of supply chains, ports, and transportation systems. The Army's Quartermaster Corps coordinated shipments to every front, from North Africa to the Pacific Islands. Liberty ships carried millions of tons of supplies across oceans, ensuring that soldiers never ran out of fuel, food, or ammunition. The reliability of American production meant that even if the enemy destroyed some supplies, there were always more on the way. The Lend-Lease program also demonstrated how America's industrial power supported the Allies. Under this policy, the United States sent tanks, planes, trucks, and raw materials to Britain, the Soviet Union, China, and other Allied nations. The Soviet Red Army received over 400,000 American trucks, which gave it crucial mobility on the Eastern Front. Britain received nearly 30% of its wartime weapons and supplies from U.S. factories. Without this support, the Allies would have struggled to sustain their resistance against the Axis. Industrial organization played a huge role in maintaining this production miracle. The U.S. government established agencies like the War Production Board and the Office of Price Administration to manage resources, control prices, and allocate materials. Factories received contracts worth billions of dollars, and workers were motivated by both patriotism and wages. Labor unions pledged not to strike during the war, ensuring continuous output. This coordination between government, industry, and labor created a system of total war mobilization unmatched by any other nation. Innovation was another hidden weapon. The war accelerated technological advances in radar, aviation, synthetic rubber, and even computing. When Japan cut off natural rubber supplies from Asia, American chemists rapidly developed synthetic rubber, allowing tire and equipment production to continue. Aluminum and steel production skyrocketed, and new materials like plastics became vital for everything from helmets to airplane parts. The industrial response wasn't just about quantity. It was about adapting, improving, and outproducing the enemy at every turn. All of this industrial output translated directly into battlefield success. In North Africa, American tanks and trucks gave Allied forces mobility against the German Afrika Korps. In Europe, American-built bombers devastated German cities and factories, crippling their ability to fight. In the Pacific, aircraft carriers, built by U.S. shipyards, carried waves of planes that turned the tide of war. Behind every victory was a supply line of steel, oil, and manpower powered by American factories thousands of miles away. Even the Axis leaders recognized the unstoppable force of American industry. German Minister of Armaments Albert Speer admitted after the war that once the U.S. entered the conflict, the outcome was sealed. The sheer volume of production made it impossible for Germany and Japan to compete. For every tank the Germans built, the U.S. built 5. For every plane Japan produced, America built 10. It wasn't just military strategy that won the war, it was industrial supremacy. The industrial effort also had lasting effects beyond the battlefield. The war pulled the United States out of the Great Depression and turned it into a global economic superpower. Millions of new jobs were created, and technological advancements continued to shape the post-war world. After 1945, American factories shifted back to consumer goods, fueling the rise of the middle class and a period of unprecedented prosperity. The infrastructure built for war became the foundation for modern America. America's industrial production didn't just supply an army, it reshaped global history. It showed how a nation's economic power could be transformed into military strength through coordination, innovation, and determination. The story of World War II is often told through battles and generals, but behind every victory was a factory worker, an engineer, and a production line working without rest. The arsenal of democracy didn't just build machines, it built the means to save freedom itself. In the end, America's industrial power was more than steel and smoke. It was the will of a nation united in purpose, channeling every ounce of energy into a single goal: victory. From the assembly lines of Detroit to the shipyards of California, every hammer strike, Every rivet and every shift helped shape the outcome of the greatest conflict in human history. The weapons of World War II may have been forged in battle, but their real birthplace was the American factory floor.